Hello, world. Those that have ears, let them hear. So I don't know if this conclusion is right, but I've come to this conclusion in my own mind. I really believe that the powers that be, that small group of people that are creating the narrative, that's the enemy to all believers. The statistics say that, once upon a time, 80 something percent of the United States claimed Christianity. And I believe now that number has dropped. It's down to around 60 something percent. But nonetheless, if the devil is in the details, right? Those powers that be, the ones that control all the platforms, all the mediums, right? All the social media platforms and the major news networks, so forth and so on. If they're the ones, right, that use propaganda and draw the narrative or create the narrative for the entire world to see and live by and go by, because we know that the power of the medium is extremely high. When you show people's, when you show people things and they can see and they hear, eye gates, ear gates, right? The number one thing that believers should protect at all times and properly discern at all times. I've come to this conclusion. With the devil being in the details and that small group, right? Think about this, considering the fact that even if we say we claim this nation, the majority of it, as we know, the most prevalent religious sect is Christianity. So let's say, just hypothetically or in theory, if that's true, and we all are that 65% plus percent or whatever, are all moving towards God, then that means that there's this much of the world that's really racist and money hunger, money, what do they call it? What did Jesus call them? Money hungers or whatever it says. Whoremongers, money whoremongers or whatever. Okay, so if that amount is this big, right? Those that love money, in other words, the lovers of money, right? That create the evil, because that's the root to all kinds of evil. Everything falls back to a foundation of how can we generate more money for ourselves? Speaking of the elites, that small little group that controls the narrative, right? Then that means everyone else, that 65 plus percent, we're all being bamboozled. We're all being bamboozled. Now think about this. If God wins in the end, right? And this is just in theory, man. So, well, that's the truth. God does win in the end. I mean, all what's going on right now is all in the book of Revelation. And so, if this is true, then we have all been bamboozled for a very, very long time. And those that control the narrative, meaning everything that the entire world has the opportunity to see through that television or on radio or on Facebook or wherever, right? And they don't allow the truths to get out, but they keep creating that lie and they keep painting that narrative, which is a lie. Then that keeps all of those 65 plus percent believers at odds, because within that 65 something percent family is every race, color, and creed that you can possibly think of, that read that word, man, and that are true believers, and their life is a reflection of Christ, man. Their life is a reflection of God's word. That means we're all being duped by that little small piece, putting us one against another, because of the narrative that's painted to create racism in people, and the fact that we do have a natural connection, whether you want to believe it or not. This is just a fact, man. We're not saying that we can't fall in love with whomever. You can't, the person doesn't have to look like you to fall in love for you to fall in love with them. They could be of another race. But that culture and that connection is always there. Within most people, whatever you come from, it's in you. It's in your DNA, man. I feel like it's an innate thing, man. When you're black, you connect with blacks. When you're white, you connect with whites, so forth and so on. If you're Indian, if you're Asian, you connect with that group of people. There's a natural flow to it, right? But within all of those folks that I just named, if you're Hispanic, you connect with other Hispanics. This is just natural, right? We're not saying that, one way or another, that there's an exception to all the rules as far as who you might fall in love with or marry, etc. I'm not even trying to get into all that, but you get the point I'm making. The point I'm making is, if there are, which there is, Hispanic believers, white believers, black believers, Asian believers, right? Indian believers, all these different races. There's none of those races where there's folks that don't claim Christianity. So in theory, in that 60-something%, there is a group, there is someone within each of those cultures and those race groups that are Christians. But if I can paint the narrative, and we know the main narrative is blacks versus whites, the black and white, if I can continue to paint that narrative and keep us at odds because of what we see, even though we have the love of Christ, right? But that narrative creates a stumbling block that creates dissension and discord and dysfunction, right? Chaos and destruction. It's a stumbling block, meaning it can tempt you to be removed from your Christ-like thinking, right? For you to have hatred toward a whole entire race of people that you otherwise should not have hatred toward, only because of the narrative and what sells hatred and anger and chaos. When people see that, it's like a drug, dopamine. It kicks in, and unfortunately, that's what sells. Sex sells, drugs sell, money sells. The negativity in the media, it sells. Think about the different music that is heathenistic. It sells, right? To those that are weak-minded. But think about that, man. That propaganda that's created, that small little narrative, it only takes a little leaven to leaven the whole loaf, right? This is what the word tells us, man. A little leaven leavens the whole loaf. That little small percentage of elites, that little small percentage of those that, the powers that be, that control the narrative, right? That put out the narrative to you and I, right? Can leaven the entire nation. A little leaven leavens the whole loaf. So family, as a nation of believers, and if you call yourself a Christian, man, you need to wake up, man, and we need to come together. We need to come together because I really believe in my heart that's exactly what's been going on. And I'm pretty sure there's a lot of folks out there that agree. Most of us are not racist. We're not. I don't believe that. Because I've had more positive experiences with the police than negative, right? Encounters or observations, if you will. I haven't mean like I've been involved with the police that many times. Can count on one hand. But whether you're getting pulled over for a speeding ticket or for running a stop sign or a red light or whatever it is, man. But it's that handful of racist folks, man, that they just want to see you go down, right? But then if in the medium, if I can paint the narrative and show black men continuously getting shot, which this is still true, but when you look at the numbers, they're skewed, right? It's still it's still too many. One is too many, right? We understand that. But if I can continuously paint that picture as frequently as I can to stir up strife within the minds of the black race, right? And now we hate all white people. And then white people naturally began to hate black people because of that small narrative. But considering the fact that if it's true, what the statistics tell us, then it's more of us than it is of them. But because a little leaven leavens the whole loaf, we're all being duped, family. Hebrews 12:14. Make every effort to live in peace with everyone and to be holy. Without holiness, no one will see the Lord that we serve, man. So again, family, little leaven leavens the whole loaf. Consider that. Consider that, man. It's something to be considered. Be blessed.